something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
Hi there, and welcome to Occupy TV. My name is Ali Valkyrie, and I will be your host tonight. And I am here with Big John McHale, who ran the Occupy Kitchen throughout all 4 of our occupation sites. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Tonight we'll be talking about Occupy in general, and more specifically about Big John's role in our movement, and specifically our site. Please tell me, how did you first find out about Occupy? How did you first get involved?
Well, I saw it on the computer, YouTube clips, CNN, Twitter, all those social media things, and watched it develop in New York, Wall Street, and watched it roll across the country, and couldn't wait for it to come to my town. Hopefully it hit Eugene, Portland maybe, but Eugene preferably, and just found out who was starting it up, got the information, found out when things were happening, and got down there, and just couldn't wait to get involved.
How did you originally get involved, and how did you end up in the kitchen?
Oh, I really didn't plan on working in the kitchen or doing anything like that. I had originally signed up to do security, because I have a heavy background in security, and wanted to help out that way with crowd control and keeping people safe and things like that, and really didn't plan on doing a kitchen. Was there for the big rally where we had 2,000 plus in a march, standing around waiting for the last guy from Saturday Market to pack up, trying to motivate him a little bit, and we just started setting up things around him, and somebody had me move a table, and then I helped move another one, and then by the third one that came along, they said, "Where do you want your tables at? You're setting up the kitchen?" And I went, "Oh, no, I'm really not," and just kind of wound up doing it.
So you had really no kitchen experience?
Not really.
And yet you seemed to take over the kitchen immediately. I remember from the second day of the park blocks, that was almost your identity there.
Yeah, I kind of got, I couldn't leave. The amount of need that was there was just overwhelming, so I stuck with it. And
how did the first couple days on the park blocks shape the rest of your experience throughout the occupation?
It kind of set the hooks into me, so I really couldn't leave. The first night I was there till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, making sure that everybody had something to eat, and just getting set up. And then the next day I really couldn't wait to get back there. And then the kids started to show up, the little kids, and that got me pretty bad. To think that there's homeless families out there that have young ones that needed assistance, that set me in concrete for that place to where I couldn't leave. So,
talk about the food and the donations, and how did that all come in, and how did that work?
That was like just a dam being broken, because from the first day, just things flowed in so heavily that by the third day, I couldn't just put stuff underneath the table anymore. I had, by midday the second day, I had 5 totes full of food on the second day. By the third day, I had to bring down a canopy to keep everything in, and that filled up very quickly. So by the time we left park blocks, we had probably 1,500 to 2,000 pounds worth of food.
Wow.
People bringing pizza down and hot soup right off the bat. People riding up on their bicycles with a little kid carrier on the back. Here I made 5 gallons of soup, and there it was.
Wow.
So, and it's been like that ever since.
Elaborate on that.
Sometimes it becomes pretty tough to manage, because there'll literally be 10 people in a row, in a line, wanting to talk to me just to hand me food. There'll be Councilman Brown standing there that I didn't even know was a councilman for the first month that I had interactions with him until later. Somebody said, that's the owner of the Kiva. I'm like, yeah, he brings food all the time. And then somebody else said, why are you talking to the Councilman Brown? And I'm like, he's a councilman? Oh, okay. I should be nicer to him. So, and then people from, just, I want to help. What can I get for you? A gallon of milk, anything. They just went to the store, got it. People taking pictures of our whole wish list and going to Costco and spending $300 and $400 and just bringing back everything that was on the list. It's just, it's hard to comprehend.
It is hard to comprehend. How did, I remember the third or fourth day of the park blocks, the health department showed up. What first happened with that? And how did that end up evolving to Washington Jefferson and having a fully set up kitchen?
Wow, yeah. They came out and just were looking at what I was doing and said, do you know what you're doing? And I said, no, any help would be greatly appreciated. So they said, well, here's what you need to do as far as cleaning the dishes, and you have to check the water with the pH strips and all this other stuff, and soups have to be at this temperature, and food has to be at this temperature, and you got to wear gloves, and it'd be nice if you had somebody with a food handler's card in here, and all these other things. And make sure you come down to the office and fill out an application for a temporary kitchen, because you'll need that. And we'll see you in a week. And yeah, they haven't been really too involved in what we were doing. I mean, I saw them once at Park Blocks, once at Alton Baker, and once at Washington Jefferson. So, but I read their literature. They gave me a ton of stuff and reviews and things to look at, and pretty much tried to follow every single thing that they gave us. Fortunately, I must have done something right, because nobody ever got sick on any of the food that we served, and we tried to maintain our health standards.
How much food did you serve?
At one point, we were serving 800 meals.
A day?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
A day.
There's 68 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot of meals served.
There's a lot of need out there. There's a lot of people that don't have a safe, secure place to just have a meal.
Tell us about your process and kind of learning that and the way that, because that was one of my things, is the degree to which, being a part of the occupation taught me the degree and the depth of that. And just the way, that issue became the main focus of the occupation, even though at the very beginning none of us necessarily thought that. And you being in the kitchen, I can see your perspective on that. Give us a little bit of how you experienced that.
Well, like the homeless population and the street families, they are naturally suspicious right off the bat. So a lot of them would come up and see what you got, and then they'd go away. And then they'd come up and get a little something, and then they'd go away. And then they'd go, wow, that was pretty good. So they'd come back and get more. So, yeah, they're naturally suspicious, and once you warm up to them, they're just like everybody else. Even a little better, because they understand more about respect, and, to get please and thank you from some of these people was really, it meant a lot, because they don't pass around words like that, freely. They mean it when they say it. So, a lot of them had to look back in their brains to remember please and thank you, because they don't get very many kindnesses out there from just people on the street. They put up defenses and things like that to not have to deal with people.
That was one of the most important things that I really learned too, is, in this process. And the line for food, especially at Washington Jefferson, to me really, really highlighted that. Just being a place where everyone was just happy and kind, and there's just this certain, the energy associated with just food and community, and the way that really just came through. I just remember just the dinner line being, in many ways, the most pleasant line you would ever stand in.
Oh, yeah.
In terms, and just the amount of gratitude that would really come from both sides, not just those eating the food, but those serving the food as well. Especially, your kitchen staff are amongst my favorite people on the planet. Absolutely. And tell us about that a bit. Tell us about Diesel, for example.
Oh, wow. Diesel, he's a great guy. He was there from the beginning. He was at the park blocks, laid low for quite a while. You know, wasn't really in a place where he could get plugged in right away. But once he saw everything that was going on, he moved in on at Alton Baker Park and started to help quite a bit. And then by the time we got to the mill race, he was my main guy. I mean, he slept in the kitchen after we shut down to make sure everything was okay. And yeah, developed into pretty much the kitchen manager now. You know, pretty much ran Washington Jefferson for me, so I could do the lobbying and the you know, the meetings and all the other things that needed to go along with it, getting a budget and keeping things rolling along with all the interferences from the city, and we're going to shut you down this day, and okay, you can operate for another day the next day. And you know, Diesel's been a really valuable asset. I mean, I don't think I could have done the last month without him. You know, because we didn't have a whole lot of steady staff. We had a lot of
Good
people.
help is hard to find.
For sure, exactly. Consistent help was hard to find. You know, once you go in, it's a crushing weight to be able to handle 200 people in a food line. You have to keep going. You can't take a break. You know, sometimes you might even miss a meal because by the time you got done feeding everybody, the food's gone. You know, there was plenty of time where we had to manage our food to where, you know, I keep an eye on the levels of where the soup pots were at, and we're going to run out in 50 people, so I got to make more real quick. You know, so to gauge the food was really really tough at times, but yeah, Diesel was a huge asset.
Diesel's one of my favorite people throughout the occupation.
He's got a huge heart.
He really is. He's
very
just amazing.
knowledgeable. He's done things like this before too. He's been involved in a few kitchen efforts, and so yeah.
He had more experience than you did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
You mentioned interference on the part of the city and being shut down, and I'm assuming that mostly happened once we were at Washington Jefferson, but could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, that was the only time we really went in, got any interference at the park blocks. Nothing, absolutely nothing. We were free to do basically whatever we wanted to do, except for exceed a meter, and I have the tickets to prove it. Yeah, we didn't really have any police interference. The health department didn't seem very interested in what we were doing. The city didn't even seem interested in what we were doing. A lot of people stopped by to get information and things, but when we moved to Alton Baker Park, the city got involved a little bit, letting us know that we needed X amount of toilet facilities, what we should do with our gray water and things like this. But by the time we got to Washington Jefferson Park, they were into everything as far as, excuse me, we had put up a temporary structure, and they were all over that. Tried to put some electricity in there that they had been telling us they were going to provide for us for a long time. Didn't do it. Running water that they never gave us. So we had to deal with our own water. We had to go 5-gallon buckets at a time across the street to the little convenience market right there and fill up water 5 gallons at a time, carry it back, put it in a big drum, and that was our cooking and drinking water. Never did get any water or electricity from the city. And then they came out and told us we couldn't have the electrical that we had. We found a workaround for that by using a 12-volt system, and they got a big chuckle out of that we found a way around them, and couldn't cook inside anymore, which I've been cooking inside since we started. Well, the Park Blocks was really outside, but
you were under
a roof,
Yeah.
under an awning. When we went to the mill race, I had built a kitchen over there.
That's right, you had a
and I was
complete
cooking
unit.
inside. Nobody ever bothered us over there until, the city got involved, and I don't understand why things changed, but they did, and they came down harder and harder and were aggressively trying to shut us down. I mean, I got notifications, today's going to be your last day because you have the electricity and the propane inside the building. Well, we'll just undo the electrical. We'll go back to running off the generator, and we'll move all the propane stuff outside. Now what do you want me to do? So whatever they came up with, I came up with a fix for. That's just the kind of person I am. I don't really have a lot of patience for something that doesn't work. So it usually winds up flying out a window or a door or whatever. And, if they tell me I can't do something, then I'm going to look for something that I can do. So I don't like to use negatives, can'ts, don'ts, won'ts, and all the other stuff. We just do what we can and not worry about the stuff that we can't do.
That seemed to be very much the attitude of the camp in general, especially at Washington Jefferson. And that is, I feel, where we met a lot of resistance on many angles, and it was almost a cat and mouse game of and then that's what I always look at you in the kitchen, and, well, they won't let us do that. Let's see if we can do this. And
oh yeah, Big John's already doing it.
well, and that was one thing that I always appreciated about the people within Occupy was our ability to just kind of do that, to all get together and very much problem solve something, through engineering or whatnot, or all the people that we have involved, and it's just amazing the way that the way that kitchen developed even over, the 5 weeks we spent. Was it 5 weeks?
More like 5 years.
It was like 5 years. That's, this seems like a 2.5 month alternate reality that, yeah, absolutely. But, sorry, I'm just thinking about it for a second.
Oh yeah, it's an awful lot to wrap your head around, because usually people don't make that many connections in a day.
Yep.
To where your brain's going, wow, this must have been a week, because I've never met that many people in my life, and now I've met that many people in one day. And I genuinely love 2/3 of them.
Yep. I know exactly, and that's the thing. I'll sit here and I'll get lost so fast in the processing, and and especially from where you were just physically in the kitchen, being able to see the people as you do every single day, and getting to know them the way we all got to know them. I mean, any of us who are on site on a regular basis, it's like I have this encyclopedia of, these 200 people that I'm still just digesting. And it's interesting now that, the physical site is over, and I'll be throughout downtown or be throughout anywhere, and, constantly, for all the wrong reasons, seeing people everywhere and anywhere, and and I'll get lost in my thoughts immediately. Like, it'll just bring me back to a certain scene or a certain thing that happened on site, and all these memories that we have that are kind of tied to all these people, and I don't think it's really enough for any of our brains to be able to comprehend.
Oh yeah, the downloading and the filing that our brains are trying to do is just overwhelming. I hear those people in my sleep.
Yeah.
And their voices, and is there one more? Could I get another? They're all there. Their faces are there. I probably couldn't tell you half of their names, because you just meet too many people in a day or a moment or whatever. But it's.
You got to know them all again in a real specific. Tell us about just kind of the day. How you serve 3 meals a day. Like,
wow.
Give us kind of a start to finish on what that entailed.
You pretty much have to start planning the day before, so you kind of know what your donations. After a while, you kind of know what your donations are gonna be, so you kind of count on those. But you start planning breakfast the night before. So, okay, this is what we're going to use for breakfast. And then you come in and you immediately get that stuff out. And before you even have that meal done, you're already prepping in the background. You have people serving out front, and then you have people prepping in the background for lunch and putting things on for dinner that need to take a while to cook or prep for or whatever, and still keep in mind that, Patty's going to be bringing some bread puddings, a soup, and then Pat's going to be bringing another soup, and so you kind of fill in, and so-and-so's on vacation for a couple days, so, and then you're going to get a certain amount of donations, and hopefully there'll be large cans instead of little cans, because they're really hard to open. So, you can't really plan a meal, but you know whether you have enough stuff or not.
And to me, it's just all the more remarkable, again, because you aren't a kitchen person.
No.
I can only imagine the learning curve that must have taken place, like the first couple days in getting that rhythm down.
Oh, yeah, you burn a lot of rice. You try and make 32 quarts of rice at once, and you lose about 2 inches off the bottom. And then you learn how not to dig down to the bottom. Get the good stuff. And yeah, the biggest meal I ever cooked for was, Thanksgiving or Christmas, maybe once every 5 years, because it was your turn at home.
Right.
So you cooked a turkey and some stuffing for 11 people, and you were like, whew, I made it through that. Now it's like 600, and you're like, what am I going to do? So, and you just do it. I mean, there's hungry people, and you have food, so you just do it.
How do you see what we're doing in the Occupy Kitchen as being different from, say, the dining room or any typical food kitchen? What is it to you personally that makes this a different experience?
The community, the people eating together, coming together, they're all there for one reason. To where if you're just dropping in somewhere to get a meal, you're usually coming in solo. Maybe one or two people there that might be there while you're there, and you might eat with them. But, if you got 600 people coming in for a meal, that's a community dinner, so there's more to it there. It's not just carrying everything that you own to a place to get a hot meal, knowing that you got to leave and carry all your stuff to where you're going to be warm for the rest of the night, and then being put out to go find breakfast. It's just a safe, secure place. You can put all your stuff in your house, in your tent, in your yurt, in your little pallet gingerbread house, or set it in the dome where it's going to be safe, and go eat your meal and relax. And if it took an hour to eat, it took an hour to eat, and you can go back and get more, as long as there's more to have. We didn't turn anybody away. So, and it was always really good food. I mean, we had the best of Eugene.
Really good food.
Yeah, I mean, the vegans and the vegetarians, and
everyone was happy.
Everybody was happy for the most part.
How did that affect you, being a part of that community thing? Again, coming into it, not necessarily knowing, as none of us did, what this movement would become. Like, how did that change you over the course of it? Why did you keep coming back?
It pretty much extinguished whatever hater I had inside me. As far as, like, before the movement, I probably wouldn't have met a tenth of the people that I have. Wouldn't have never approached them or anything else. But now, through interacting with them, these are awesome people. I cherish every single relationship that I have with these people, and will continue with them for the rest of my life. I won't deny anybody that I've met. So that's been a big change. The impact from feeding people is special. There's just something chemically in your brain that happens when you're nourishing that many people, that you form a special bond. I kind of moved into a fathering type role,
Yes, you did.
Of feeding all my children, and sticking up for them, and if it wasn't right, I wouldn't serve it. I mean, there was plenty of things that were donated to the kitchen that I didn't feel good about, that never hit a plate. So, you know, I needed to protect. I felt like I needed to protect the population. You know, I was responsible for them. You know, as far as if I put something out, they're assuming it's safe to eat. So, you know, like I said, nobody ever got sick. There was never any question of what was in the food. You know, it was just, you know.
Well, everything was good all the time. And,
Yeah.
you know, and that was your security role in a sense, you guarded the food.
Yeah. We had some good people come in and provide food. Get Fried Rice came in and did services. Govinda's came in and did services. We had, you know, pastries from Voodoo and Sweet Life and quite a few other places around town. And
This Danish Cheesecake always
Danish
sent me
Cheesecake,
their leftovers
oh
at
my
the end
goodness.
of Holiday Market. We got some wonderful, thank you Dana and Colleen, it was wonderful
thank you,
cheesecake.
thank you. They were awesome. I mean, that was the special nights. You know, the Sunday evening dinner and the Monday evening dinner with the cheesecake and carrot cake and all their little cookie bars and stuff like that. Yeah, I made a commitment at the park blocks to put 10 pounds on each and every one of the homeless people, and I had a couple of them come up lately and pat their bellies and
With good food.
With
That's
good
what's
food, yeah.
important. It was good food. Let's talk about, you know, you went from purely the kitchen role to definitely more of a diplomatic role at the end there, as many of us did in, you know, working with the city and all these negotiations. Can you tap into that a bit?
Well, yeah, there wasn't. Well, at the beginning, there was a couple of them that came up, and they wanted to know why I was there and things like that, and I just sent them away. Number one, I wasn't ready to talk to them. I was still pretty emotional about why I was there, and I knew if I got in front of a camera, I probably wouldn't shut up about all the things that, you know, that I think are wrong with the country. And so I just stayed away because I had work to do. I had people to feed and didn't have a spare second. And so I turned them away, and they kept coming back, and didn't really feel the need to interact with them yet until Washington Jefferson Park, where people started picking on us and attacking us and wanting us to go away, and you know, that fatherly instinct popped back up, and I needed to defend my kids, my family, and you know, so I got a lot more involved with sticking up for them, and felt I was needed in the meetings with the city. Had some things I wanted to say and wanted to share, and wanted them to realize that these are people. They're not beings to be counted. They're human beings. You know, they're not a budget. You know, they're not a choice. I don't think, because the city council seemed to think that they had a choice of whether to help people or not help people. And I think that's inhumane. You know, if somebody needs help and you can help them, then you should. If you can't, you shouldn't hinder them. Just get out of their way. You know, so I either wanted them to get out of the way or help. And, well, we saw how that wound up.
One could argue that unfortunately they did neither in the end. And in many ways, I mean, that's kind of, I think, your view on that is very much how we felt as a movement, and it was expressed by many occupiers that, you know, we don't want your money, we don't want your help, we just want to be able to do what we need to do because it's the job of a community to take care of each other. And I think that's, you know, one major, huge piece of our philosophy that I'm not sure if they truly failed to understand or they failed to publicly acknowledge. But, you know, in many ways, when I saw the kind of breakdown of negotiations on the city level, you know, that was the piece, you know, just what you're saying, you know, they're not consumers, they're not clients.
They focus way too much on money and budget. The first 2 months that I was in existence with the kitchen, I spent $18.
Wow.
That's it. That's it. The food was brought to us. All the equipment was brought to us, either loaned to us or just flat out given to us.
Yeah.
Food was cooked for us and brought down. And that's it. $18 is what I spent on some propane and, just some incidental stuff. Every single thing. If you asked for it, you got it. They went and got it and brought it down. Yeah, and they're so focused on, well, what's it going to cost, and where are we going to take the money from? Well, we were fine. They didn't need to spend any money on us. If they would have left us alone and not hindered our existence the way they did, they wouldn't have had the problems that developed. If they didn't actively bring in adjutants, like I personally saw them drop off people in police cars. The first weekend that we were there, the Saturday that we were there, there was an endless parade of taxi cabs with 2, 3, 4 people getting out, not even knowing who paid for their cab or anything else.
Why they were there.
So if we were just left alone and not hindered, everything would have been a lot different. If we got to pick and choose who came and joined our movement, and the people that came into the camp, if they were told that this was a political movement and that there were policies and procedures to follow, rather than just y'all come on down, and this is where you live at now, and those people will take care of you, and things like that, like they were told, we wouldn't have had half the problems. I mean, we welcomed people that came through that had needs. We had drunk people wander onto the site. Instead of just turning them away and sending them on down the road where they might get hurt, people embraced them, sobered them up,
Give them something
came
to
and
eat.
got coffee from me, got them some soup and things like that. If they were intoxicated with any other substance, they helped them out. Not my decision or anybody else's decision. It's just the people that they wandered into saw that there was a need, and they just took care of them, because that's how the people on the street usually work. Is they take care of.
Take care of each other.
Hey, this is so and so. Remember we met them, when we were sleeping under the bridge last year. Oh, hey, yeah, let's help them out. So, if we hadn't had those obstacles thrown in our way, then things would have been a lot different.
Deliberate interference, I called it.
Deliberate interference, yeah, sure,
And unfortunately,
exactly.
I experienced, I'll never forget being there at a night security shift, and at 5:30 in the morning, we had 4 inmates walk over from the Lane County Jail, and, just out of curiosity, I was like, oh, how'd you find us? And he told me that a police officer told them that if they came down to Occupy, they could get, and then he proceeded to ask me, he's like, can I have a meal and some shoes? That's what I was told I could get here. And I just remember thinking, wow, we're now being used as a substitute social service by the EPD and or, whatever else their intention is in sending people here. And unfortunately, and it didn't, it just escalated, those kind of things just escalated to an unmanageable point. And in retrospect, it's the hindrance thing, if we had just been left alone, I can't imagine what it could have been like with everything, and that's the real tragedy for me about all this is not only were promises broken, and not only did they destroy something that really was working, but it was never given a chance to go the direction it should have because of this constant pressure. And it almost felt that, the more we were being successful, the harder that pressure came.
Well, yeah, we were making them look bad because when they tried, they failed. So we can't have anybody else succeed without our input. So I guess we have a second chance at some input now, and if we can succeed, great.
Talk about that, second chance.
Yeah, we'll be meeting with city officials and human service people here shortly on the mayor's task force for the homeless, and trying to get some services lined up for them, and hopefully a site. That would be awesome if they can come up with some kind of place for people to go, because there are more people coming. They say there's 4,200 people in and around Eugene Springfield area. that are homeless. St. Vinny's services about 3,200 of those right now. But in the city of Eugene alone, there's about 17,200 people that are at zero income.
Wow.
So when the bubble breaks on that number, it's going to be pretty rough. So instead of thinking that, well, we could help people or we couldn't, it's going to become a have to here pretty soon. They're going to have to do something, you know.
I've always felt, even long before Occupy, that the city is very much in denial about the depth of this problem. And they're also in denial about how much the problem is being exacerbated. You know, for example, a couple weeks into us being at Washington Jefferson Park, I remember an article in the Register Guard talking about how all the local social service organizations haven't seen that much of a difference in their numbers from last year. And they sort of used it to insinuate that, you know, we weren't really making a difference. However, I looked at that and I thought, but the amount of people on the street, the amount of people without jobs, the amount of people without income has risen dramatically. So, you know, if they're not seeing any more people at St. Vinny's than last year, that means we're taking up the slack. You know, that doesn't mean we're not making a difference. It means we're making a huge difference. And I feel that, you know, that incremental and an exponential issue regarding poverty and homelessness, it's completely not understood by a city government that frankly thinks they really do understand the issue. And that's, you know, I mean, you and I were in a lot of the same negotiating meetings. And the impression I always got was that, you know, they felt that they truly had a grasp on, you know, not only the depths of the issue, but again, the amount of money and this and that they would need to fix it, that since they don't have, we can't fix it, even though we're not looking at it from a realistic perspective in the first place.
Yeah, a lot of plausible deniability to where we could say our numbers are less, but if we do, then our budget gets less. So I think that might have been motivation, because on one hand, the directors are saying, oh, no, there's no change in our numbers, but then the people that actually worked there, that were also working with us, were saying, oh, wow, here's all of our people. You know, this is where they're at. You know, there's a couple organizations that just basically didn't have anything to do because they were there.
They were there.
And they liked it. You know, they saw the people that they were providing services happy, healthy, you know, clean clothes, a place to live, family, community, involvement. They were doing things. They were learning stuff. You know, just amazing how once you get people comfortable again, you know, they just reawaken and want to help and go to work. And, you know, the money that they threw at us would have been way better. I mean, the $300,000 that they wanted to spend on policing and providing lights and human services that never, ever appeared.
What happened to those shelters anyway?
Yeah. $300,000, wow, what I could have done with $300,000. I probably could have ran a program like that for years. For years. And helped a lot more people than the small amount of money that they actually did spend out of that. You know, because that program's done. Everybody was told that they need to turn in their receipts for reimbursement, and that no more money was going to be spent. This was a week ago now. So, you know, the things that they said they were going to do, they're not doing.
Nothing seems to be in the works whatsoever.
No. And for the task force to do anything, whatever they decide they're going to do, they're going to have to rebudget. You know, so where are they going to get money to do anything? They were complaining about the money that they took already. So are they going to go back and go, well, you only used 200, or you only used 10,000 of that 300,000, so we still got. I understand that's not the way it's going to happen. So.
No, it breaks my heart to see, for example, the money that was spent on the fence and the lights and 24-hour security and all these things that in the end endangered the safety of the people there, in my opinion, and actually contributed to the closing of the camp. And not just endangered the safety, but just endangered their psychological health and just, the comfort. And again, when I listen to so many of the city officials in this process, they seem to grasp, the basic needs, such as, okay, we're going to give people warming centers and we're going to feed them. But it's that comfort piece and that community piece that, to this day, when I'm listening at least to what I think is coming from, the side of the city on the task force here, that there's still no understanding or concentration on where people need to be or where they should be during the day, and having somewhere to place your stuff. A warming center is wonderful, but the fact that they closed the Occupy camp and justified it by opening a warming center for 3 days, to me was just, just this insulting deception on so many levels. I mean, not only being 3 days before Christmas, but again, at 8 in the morning, okay, you need to leave now with everything you own on your back. You can now just go out and be downtown during the day where nobody wants you and you're subject to constant police harassment. And then you can wait till 6 at night, where then you can come back and put your stuff down for a few hours and go to sleep. And the fact that, anyone on the level of city government thought that was acceptable is just so above and beyond my capacity of thinking. And, what concerns me in this, future plans, what they're talking long-term solutions, I unfortunately see more of the same, or I'm afraid of more of the same, in terms of, what the city understands to be the necessities and priorities of the homeless population versus what we learned throughout 2.5 months actually are the necessities and the priorities.
There's a big difference between doing and just not doing. And that was just another kick in the teeth to an already overstressed population. And I would be careful with the amount of stress that these people are already under, because it seems to be mounting. They really need to do something about it. Whether they control it or the population controls it, whether they take matters into their own hand and claim a spot. Something needs to happen. They need to be way more proactive than reactive.
Yep.
They can't just go, oh, there's a problem, what are we going to do about it? They need to have a lot more foresight. And, city planning should be planning and not reacting. Let's call it what it is. If you're going to plan, then come up with a plan. Now they're coming to a group of people that have no speciality in these affairs. The only thing that we've done is deal with it.
We had no experience, we just dealt with it well.
Right. But they're professionals at this, but they don't deal with it. I've been criticized by council for thinking that the people that have been doing these things for the last 10, 15, 20 years should be insulted, that I think this is a brand new problem. And I don't. I know that this has been a long-term problem. This has been, plaguing society for a long time. The only thing is the stuff that they're doing isn't keeping up with the problem and isn't really addressing the problem. They're just basically Band-Aids. They're not complete thoughts. Okay, we can do this and have an end plan. This is a great fix for right now, but it doesn't solve the problem. So they need to be a lot more A to Z type plans to deal with the situation, because you can't just keep reacting to it. It's not going to work.
And everything they've done so far, and that's where I see them, concentrating on, well, we just need more, we need wet beds, which is not that we don't need that. It's an important thing to have. The fact that we don't have it thus far is shameful. But, they see that as the solution, not as a path to a solution. Same with, well, we just need to feed more people, or we need, more warmings. I keep on hearing, let's just have the warming centers go every night. And even if the warming centers go every single night throughout the winter, again, that's not a solution.
Right.
Even putting people in shelters is not a solution if we can't reintegrate them into the community and help them with job skills. And how, there
Right.
seems to be all these pieces, but there's no cohesion between them.
Yeah, we have to have a wet bed situation because people are self-medicating because they're overstressed. So if you live on the street and you don't get to sleep, you have sleep deprivation, that leads into hypervigilance, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all these other things. And they okay, fine, you can come in if you're drunk or intoxicated or under the influence of a substance, but they're not addressing why they're doing that. They're self-medicating because they're terrified. They turn people away on the street because they don't want to be ridiculed by people saying, get a job and things like that. Let's give them somebody to talk to so that they can, get these things out of their system and find a better way than just providing a wet bed. Provide therapy and counseling and a safe place to sleep, and not to the point where they're worried about having to leave in the morning and God, I got to carry 130 pounds of stuff to the next place. They need a place to put their stuff. They complain about people carrying a knife. Well, at home, I got a place to put my knives in my drawer in my kitchen. They don't.
Yep.
So
that was
understanding, education, things like that. That's the city council and the people that make the policies need to be educated about why they do the things they do.
And, one of the great experiences I had, being on the site physically, specifically doing night rounds, night security, was, watching that education take place in the flesh, especially between organizers who, have never necessarily interacted with the houseless population, and then the street families, I'll never forget a scenario in the middle of the night where, the street kids are up all night. They don't sleep. They don't know how to make themselves sleep at night. They're going to be up and they're going to be vigilant till sunrise, and then when they feel safe in their own minds, that's when they will maybe perhaps get a few hours worth of sleep. And and it is this big picture thing where you have a population that people understand are on a hair trigger, but people don't really understand the different levels of why. Not only just lack of sleep, but lack of a good diet, for example. Eugene is wonderful in that every day of the week you can get a hot meal somewhere. But other than that one hot meal, you're pretty much reliant on whatever a food stamp card or whatever barter cash system you can work on is going to provide for you. And you can't buy hot food with food stamps. You're relegated to eating snacks at night. Your only option is 7-Eleven. And so you have a combination of a poor diet where we love to talk in our society how it makes small children hyper, and it makes everyone hyper. It makes everyone unbalanced. And in the not sleeping, what people don't understand is that's intimately related to your stuff and not having a place to put your stuff and having to guard everything you own at every moment. You don't really sleep. You sit there half asleep, knowing where your knife is in case someone touches your stuff. And that's something that's so hard for people to understand if they've never been on the street. And it's things like that I so wish the city council, I truly just don't think they understand those pieces of it. And even so many people within social services organizations, as much as there's aspects of this, unfortunately, way too heavily weighted on the budget, monetary, this, that, there's aspects they understand much better than you or I or any of us. But, for those of us that, again, just experienced this as opposed to spent years planning and studying and whatnot, there's these basic needs that are always completely overlooked amongst it, and that's the major one of them is just the amount of sleep deprivation on this population.
Oh, it's huge.
And it's just like, to me, that is the number one issue. They're just tired and they're exhausted, and they live in the state of continual exhaustion, which affects decision-making skills, affects everything. And and the beautiful thing about, especially once we were at the Washington Jefferson site, because it just there was a continuity there where I saw over the course of time, for the first time, people, I got 6 hours worth of sleep, and you could tell it was the first time in years sometimes that they had, because finally, after all this time, they felt safe. And, kind of referring to what you were talking about before, where, you have this, this entire population that for years just felt so marginalized, was given a safe space, and now has had that taken away. And, and I have to look at the city like, do you really think that providing a few warming shelters for a few nights is going to assuage the amount of betrayal? I mean, the
Right.
knife in the back.
Yeah,
I
literally.
mean, and I see people, I go downtown, I see, and they're upset, and they're angry, and they feel so betrayed. And I just have to say, what does the city plan on doing about this? Because a 90-day task force is not going to fix what needs to be fixed right now, which is that, not only do people have nowhere to go, but they're afraid to be in the city limits. I mean, many of them are afraid of retaliation.
Right.
I don't know, how relevant that fear actually is, but, this is a population that was just constantly marginalized, not only by police, but, through this process, we've seen such hatred from so many of the citizens. I always say, this experience showed the best of Eugene and the worst of Eugene. And, and it's those haters that I really do worry about. And this extremely vulnerable population. And, everyone out on the street, and frankly, this vulnerable population that more than ever, kind of wears the badge of Occupy. And,
A lot of the haters are going to take care of themselves, because they probably don't have too long left before they're in the same situation. Things aren't getting any better. 2012 isn't looking very prosperous.
no, it's not.
They expect the recession to continue. The middle class section of society is shrinking at an alarming rate. Unless you experience the place that the homeless people are at, it's hard to wrap your brain around what they're going through, because you can't take a day off from being homeless. It's going to happen to you every day you wake up. You don't get to go on vacation. You don't get to have somebody work that shift for you for 8 hours and tell you, okay, you be homeless for a while, I'm going to go over here and chill. You don't get that. You always have to be on guard, or have your day planned out. They know what every resource is available to them in the city. They have it all mapped out. They have it all timed out. They know that if they miss a bus and it's 4:25, that they're probably going to miss a meal, and then they'll not be able to get into that program. And
and then they can't get there by the time you have to get there to sleep there.
Just as much as the soccer mom knows that she needs to pick Billy up at 3:25 to get from school to be at karate practice, and then drop the daughter off at soccer practice. They don't get a day off from being homeless.
No.
Ever. So we were kind of like the respite, place that they could, wow, I'm not homeless. I've got a spot.
Yeah.
And I can put all my stuff down for a minute and just walk out of my spot and walk over to the kitchen and get a meal, and then walk over to the library and play a game of chess with somebody, and go to the info booth and find out what's happening later, and just have a community for a minute.
Yeah.
Vacation's over, back to being homeless.
Yeah.
The city says so.
And again, that reflection, like I'll never forget, I was on site one afternoon just doing something random, and I was about to leave, and I needed to run up to Jerry's. And I had mentioned it to someone, and a woman came up to me, and exactly as you described, she had this schedule in her head, and it was like, I need to get to the service center by this time, but I just missed this bus, and I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't. And she wasn't even asking me for anything. She was just, she needed someone to vent to. And, and I remember just hearing the entirety of the schedule, and all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, oh, you need to go up 99. Well, I'm going to Jerry's. And all of a sudden it was just like the burden I realized I had lifted with those, which to me, again, was absolutely nothing. I'm driving there anyway. But it really made me reflect on, I know I own a car, I'm privileged. but just the degree to which, one has to stack their life like that. And again, you don't have a day off, and 5 minutes can throw off 2 days worth of really crucial things that you need to do. And, and I also learned along the way that the services aren't necessarily stacked up with the ability to get there. For example, Pro Bono does wonderful clinics on Sundays up on 99. However, many of the buses don't run until 8:30 in the morning, and you need to be online before 8 to be a part of the lottery. So, on one hand, it's wonderful that they have this service. I tip my hat to them. On the other hand, people can't get there.
Right.
There was a woman who was trying to get to, Catholic Community Services to get a free bus pass, but she missed the bus to get there and couldn't get another bus to get there, so there's no bus to go to get your bus pass. And, these little, catch-22s that, we wouldn't even think about unless we were in that situation. But then once you see it, it's just like, that's something that doesn't leave me. And these little lessons that, I wish something like that was something that, city government would understand more. Those little things that we all take for granted until we don't have them, and the degree to which your life becomes so difficult.
Yeah, I've talked to those people in human services about, you guys provide great things, but they're scattered all over the city. Oh, we'll just give them bus passes. No, that's not going to work, because you have to take everything that you have and load it into a bus and then unload it, and that doesn't work. If they were more consolidated into one area, or a group of areas, create some oasis, to where they are there, okay, fine. We have a group of services available to people on this side of town, and a group of services that are available to this side of town. So they don't have to be traveling all over the place. Instead of having, one mission, there should be plenty of places for people to go. Like I said, the numbers aren't getting any smaller. We're going to need to create more spaces. So, that's what they need to do, and not just try and put Band-Aids. Just giving people bus passes isn't going to cut it. Move your services. If people are starving over there, let's move the food to where the people are, or the people to where the food is.
No, I find
it's kind of a no-brainer.
And so many people I know, their entire world does seem to revolve around the bus station and getting here and getting there. And again, when I think of the amount of time that simply goes into having to go to access all these services. And then, of course, from a downtown perspective, it also centralizes everyone at the bus station. And, and that becomes this whole thing where, the outer community complains about the homeless presence downtown at the bus station, where it's like, well, they have no choice. Where are they supposed? How are they supposed to get anywhere? And and the same thing with the library. Where are you supposed to go?
Yeah, they invite everybody in to come and get warm, but don't you dare fall asleep.
Yep. That being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Big John. My name is Allie. Next time. Okay. Who's
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that?